Hi there, this is Tanya, and welcome to episode 1 of the course 6 Weeks to Passionate Income and Bold New You. First of all, I want to thank you for being here and taking the time to do something magnificent for yourself. During this course, you're going to encounter your own resistance, you're going to get uncomfortable, you're going to dig deep into your soul to see what is it that you really want. And you're going to take some action. And you're going to start the process of transformation to create the future that you want. Today, what we're going to talk about and to work on is what is missing and what's not working in your life, so that we have a baseline of where we're starting from. Okay? And if you like, we are going to restore the freedom and the power in all of the areas of your life where you feel powerless right now. And we're going to clear the past and stop blaming ourselves and the way that we have been playing life so far, so that we can leave the baggage of the past behind and start fresh. So, my story. About 10 years ago, I was an investment banker living in Washington, D.C., and I had a great income and benefits and got to travel all around the world, which was awesome. But I was surrounded by people who were miserable. I was surrounded by tons of bureaucracy, and I was working in a toxic environment. And I was working ridiculous hours, and I really didn't have time to do anything else or do anything that I actually liked in life. And the worst thing, that I had been there for 15 years, and I had been miserable for about 7 of those 15 years. But I hadn't done anything about it. Go figure. And through the process that we're about to go through, I discovered how much I really disliked the environment I was in, and how it had an impact on my self-esteem. It had an impact on my relationships. In that I didn't really have any relationships outside of work. And it had an impact on how I saw my future, and I realized that I had been completely resigned that this was going to be my next 20 years of my life, and I was going to be miserable until I was 62 and retired. And then maybe I would get to, live and do the things that I wanted to do. And if I was still alive. And I was miserable. I was also diagnosed with an incurable autoimmune disease. And with that, I'm like, no, this job is literally making me sick. Something needs to happen. So the lesson of this was like, I wasn't happy, but until I started looking at the impact of the situation on my health, on my relationships, on my mental well-being, I didn't see that things had to change. And the urgency really came from realizing that if I didn't change something, nothing was going to change. And 20 years from now, I was going to be 20 times more miserable, or I would be dead. And I would also forever regret not taking action right now. And so I took action. I left. A couple of years later, my autoimmune disease was literally gone. And I am now happier than I have ever been. But I would not be here hadn't I gotten to the point where I realized how I had been lying to myself, and how I had been inauthentic about how unhappy I was, and took action. So you might be in a similar position right now. You might be in a job that you hate. You might be in a relationship that is not working. Or you might be in deep debt and don't know how to crawl out of it. And so today we're creating the urgency for change. So the action, we're going to take some action today. So we're going to restore the power and the freedom in the areas where you feel powerless to change. And in order to do that, we're going to look at what's not working. Like, what are the areas in your life where you feel like there's the biggest gap between where you are right now and where you want to be? Like, where are you unhappy? And in order to do this process, and we're going to do this together, I'm going to have you print out the worksheet that came in the email with this video. And it says Slaying Dragons worksheet. And it has a little beautiful dragon picture up here. And so I'm going to have you print that out. And then you can either write on these spaces here, or you can take a separate journal. I actually would recommend taking a separate journal just so that you have, this is going to be deep work where you have to dig through your emotions. So you might want to have a separate journal where you write what comes up for you so that you don't have to stop because you run out of space on the paper. So anyway, so once you're done with that, come back and let's pick. So what you're gonna what you're gonna do is you're gonna pick an area of your life where you feel like there's the biggest gap between, like where things are not working the most. So it could be your work and career, it could be your love and relationships, it could be your finances, it could be your health and wellness. So pick one, or you can pick another area if another area feels like it's more urgent for you. But pick one area and let's run through these questions with that one area in mind. And then after that, once we've gone through it once together, then you can run through this same process with anything that is not working in your life at any time. It's super powerful. So we're going to do it together. And then then you've done it once, and then you can do it on your own with the other areas in your life where you see gaps. So first, question number 1, discover your inauthenticity. What have I been pretending, or what have I been unwilling to admit even to myself about this area of my life? What have I been avoiding, refused to look at, or acknowledge in this area of my life? I really want you to be honest with yourself and dig deep as to what is it that you're unwilling to look at. And I have an example here of that has to do with finances that kind of like shows the way I would think about these questions in the area of finances, for example, so that you have an example of what that answer could be like, so that you can then figure out your own for the area in your life that you picked. So, what have I been pretending, or what have I been unwilling to admit to myself about this area in my life? What have I been avoiding? What have I refused to look at or acknowledge in this area of my life? So stop the video right now and answer these questions. And welcome back. All right. 2, discover the impact of your inauthenticity. So what is the impact of me having been pretending and not having been willing to face the reality in this area of my life? And consider the impact on you, your relationships, your career, your finances, your loved ones. So look at most times when we refuse to look at something, it doesn't only impact us, there's impacts also on other people. So sometimes we have to really start thinking about, okay, what has the impact been on my kids, my spouse, my finances, on the things that I am doing. So take a broad look at where you can see there might have been impacts, where other people would have been impacted about things you did, things you didn't do. So stop the video and think about and write those answers now. Welcome back. So 3 is the predictable future. If I change nothing in this area, what is my life going to look like 1 year from now, or 5 years from now, or 10 years from now? Really think about what's going to happen if you change nothing. And it could be like if, let's say that if you're overweight, for example, if you keep on adding a couple of pounds every year, 5 years from now, the predictable future is that you're going to be X pounds heavier and developing health conditions that you didn't have. And 10 years from now, it's going to be even worse. So it's like really look at the impact of what happens if you change nothing, so that you get the urgency of right now you can do something about it. So right now is the time to do something about it. So answer those questions and stop the video and come back when you're done. All right. Number 4, we're going to give up the blame. We're going to take on full ownership, and we're going to forgive ourselves for the way we've been acting and not acting. So when we do things or don't do things, and when we are being inauthentic about how things really are, we were talking earlier about how that might have an impact on people around you. And if you in the previous exercise saw that there was an impact on other people, your spouse, your kids, whatever, you might want to have a conversation with them about how you just realized that this is how you've been being, and this is what you realized, and this is what you see that they might have been impacted by this. And because oftentimes when we refuse to see something, and when we refuse to acknowledge something, that something that we don't talk about, that we refuse to talk about, it becomes a barrier between me or you and that other person. There's something that hasn't been said, and that thing that hasn't been said, it becomes a barrier in the communication between you and that person. So acknowledging that there is this thing that you haven't talked about and you haven't been willing to admit oftentimes clears that barrier, and that clears the communication between the two of you. And so even if you have lost relationship many years ago because of something that you were unwilling to admit, oftentimes you can still have that conversation with the person, and you can oftentimes that relationship can start from a completely new beginning, just because that barrier that you had built is now gone, and now there's clear and open communication between the two of you. So that was a side note. So anyway, acknowledge the impact with the people who might have been impacted, if you see that has happened. And next, we're going to take on full ownership, because as long as you keep on blaming outside circumstances, or blaming the past, or this is how the world is, everything's unfair, whatever, you're never going to get your power back. The only time you get power back is when you take full ownership of everything that happened, everything that didn't happen, and that's it. And that life is in your hands instead of life happening to you, you know? And then what we're going to do is we're going to forgive ourselves. So given that you can't change the past, and you can't change how you did things or how you didn't do things, or how you were being or how you weren't being, just forgive yourself. You did the best you could with the information you had at the time, and therefore there's nothing wrong with what happened. What happened, and it's now the past. And with forgiving yourself, you can get back to realizing, okay, this is what the situation is now. The baggage of the past is gone. This is where we're now. And now we have a clear space to see, okay, this is where we are. Where do we want to go? What are the steps we can take? Which brings us to the next step. What is the compelling vision that you see, and where you want to be in this area of your life? So I want you to take all of your emotions, take all of what you want happening, what you want this area to look like in your life in the future. Really put your dreams and emotions together and create a vision that compels you and that makes you excited. And I want you to write that down on this same piece of paper or in your journal. So go write your vision right now. And welcome back. So number 6. So now we're going to look at, okay, what's the difference between where you are right now and the vision that you just wrote? And specifically because now the blame of the past is gone, we are here. So now all we have to do is really look at where are we now, where we want to go, and what are the action steps that we can take to start moving that direction. And I want you to take a few minutes and write down, think about the vision, think about where you're right now, think about at least 3 or 4 actions that you can start taking right now to get from where you are right now in this area of your life to where you want to be. Stop the video right now and write down. All right, welcome back. How do you feel? At least for me, when I go through this process, I feel a tremendous sense of relief in that I no longer have to blame myself for the way I've been being, and I now have a plan of action that I can do, that I know if I keep on doing actions, I will get from where I am to what my vision is. And I would love to know what you realized, what you discovered during the process. And so please send me an email, write down what you discovered if you can, or you can put comments in the comments below. And I would love to know what you discovered and how the process was for you. And then I would really recommend that now that you've done this process with one area, take another area of your life where you feel there's a gap between where you're at and where you want to be, and do the same process with that area and see what you discover. And in conclusion, first of all, I want to acknowledge you for having gone through this process and having taken the time to really dig into what's going on with you and where you're at, because that's where all the change starts. And I hope that during this week you're gonna take time and go through this process with other areas of your life, and then in the next episode we will rediscover fire and dig for your purpose. Are you brave enough to admit what you really want in life? Thank you, and I will see you next week. Bye.